Good evening, folks. Just before we get started, just a quick thumbs up from the audience on Zoom. Can you hear me okay? Okay, excellent. If you can see a bunch of thumbs up. Bit of administration before we start on the public meeting. Just to note that this disclaimer is to inform all participants that this meeting is conducted in person and via Zoom will be recorded for record purposes. By participating in the meeting, you consent that the recording may contain your video stream, including images of yourself, or audio stream. This includes any opinions you contribute. Anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of their personal data recorded if they actively participate or not. By staying in the meeting, you consent to being recorded. By consenting and attending the meetings virtually or in person, participants also agree to recordings being posted to YouTube or other distribution services. I'd like to acknowledge that Armour Township is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe. Armour Township recognizes the historical and contemporary contributions of the local First Nations and the peoples of Turtle Island. This is the public meeting for application S01-24, Prentice application. This is a public meeting with respect to consideration of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment under Section 34 of the Planning Act to amend bylaw number 27-95. As amended by bylaw number 23-2010. Purpose of this bylaw is to rezone the subject lands to fulfill the conditions of the approved plan of subdivision, file S01-24, to permit year-round residential uses on Deer Lake on 15 new lots, provide a 30-meter setback to Deer Lake and wetlands, provide a 15-meter setback to other water courses, prohibit development, including docks within one fish habitat, and a holding provision on a proposed lot 11 pending a stage 3 and if required stage 4 site-specific archaeological assessment, and prohibit future residential development and land division on additional lands owned by the applicant, preventing backlot development.
Notice of the public meeting was given by prepaid first-class mail on February 27th, 2026 to the ministries and agencies as required by the Planning Act. Notice was also published in the Digital Almagua News for 30 days, commencing on February 28th, 2026, and on the Township of Armour website.
So the procedure is, we will first hear from the clerk any submissions received in writing, then we will hear from those in support of the bylaw, and then we will hear from those opposed to the bylaw. All persons wishing to address the bylaw will please direct their questions through the chair, that's myself. Any persons who want further notice of the passage of a bylaw should give their full name, address, and postal code to the clerk prior to leaving the meeting. So I would suggest those on Zoom can email that to our clerk at the Township Office. Copy of the proposed bylaw was circulated. Is there anyone here who does not understand it and wants an explanation? I don't see any hands up in the room, and I don't see any hands up on Zoom. We will now hear written submissions from the clerk.
So council has been provided with I'm going to provide a summary. Council has been provided with all of the written submissions physically in the room here. A total of 26 written submissions were received regarding this matter, with 25 expressing opposition and 1 indicating no concerns. The concerns raised focus largely on environmental impacts, including the potential loss and fragmentation of natural shoreline and wildlife habitat, particularly significant deer wintering areas identified as Stratum 1 and 2. There were also concerns about disrupting connected natural areas, inconsistencies with past decisions, potential misalignment with provincial policy, and limitations in the public consultation process due to the timing of meetings. In particular, the Ontario Deer Stewardship Association, representing over 800 members, expressed strong opposition, emphasizing that these habitats are essential, limited, and irreplaceable for the survival of white-tailed deer and other species. They highlighted risks such as habit fragmentation, disruption of migration corridors, and cumulative ecological damage that may not be reversible. Their recommendation was to maintain existing protections, adhere strictly to provincial policy, and require comprehensive ecological assessments to ensure no negative impacts on critical habitat. It is also noted that Bell Canada indicated no concerns with the proposal and advised that it would not be servicing the development, with Cogeco identified as the fiber provider under the Provincial Accelerated High-Speed Internet Program.
Thanks. So we'll now have an opportunity to hear from those both in support of and opposing the application. Just so folks understand the process. Council will not be making a decision at this meeting. In our regular council meeting, the bylaw comes up and we will be discussing it further at that point. This is an opportunity for those in the audience to speak and an opportunity for council just to ask questions and get clarifications. So we will now ask for those in support of and those opposed to the application. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to address the committee. If you're speaking on behalf of an organization or association, you may have up to 5 minutes. And this is strictly so we can kind of keep to a timeline. We're not going to go right down to the second, but we want to limit that. Please begin your statement by stating your name and any affiliation for the record. Failure to make written or oral submissions to council before a decision is made on the zoning bylaw amendment may forfeit the right to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Is there anyone here in support of the application?
Good evening, Mayor Warden, Council, Lanny Dennis Planning, Box 254, Nova, Ontario, P0A1R0. I represent the owners, and Bev Wicks from Riverstone is here tonight to answer any ecological questions, as Al Shaw has had a recent medical procedure, so he's unable to attend. I appreciate the efforts of staff bringing the application forward and preparing the draft bylaw. The zoning bylaw amendment is a condition of the previously approved draft plan of subdivision for 15 permanent residential building lots. The zoning bylaw amendment implements a number of conditions imposed by the planning board, including, I think you had identified them, a 30-meter setback from the wetlands and Deer Lake, no docks in the type 1 fish habitat, holding symbol on lot 11, prohibiting development on the backlands, and further lot creation on that parcel of land as well, and for 61 meters of frontage on lots 1 to 5. I had an opportunity to review most of the public comments that came in, and I just wanted to summarize them the way I saw them. The one had to do with deer wintering habitat on lots 1 to 5, and 61 meter frontage proposal. Riverstone is here to address this in detail, but from a planning perspective, I just wanted to offer the following comments. I noted in the draft bylaw in the explanatory note, it indicates that the proposed zoning bylaw does conform to the official plan. Also, relying on the EIS, the planner for the planning board reviewed the PPS, in particular section 4, natural heritage features, which includes deer habitat, and found it to be consistent. They also reviewed the township policy, and relying on the policy in the EIS found the proposal conforms. We know through recent correspondence from the MNRF that they do not review specific development proposal and relies on and deflects to the local decision makers. Condition 14 of the planning board requires the property be subject to site plan control. And this is very key in my mind. There's an entire section dedicated to site plan control for development in the waterfront. So in essence, there's a fairly how should I say, arduous test, if you will, and protection built in through the official plan for development of waterfront properties. And having it on this property, it's probably more stringent than many existing waterfront properties. And according to the EIS, there is limited tree removal outside the development. What that means is when you come forward, you show where your house is going to go, you show the driveway, you show the septic system, and then that's your area for development. And then the vegetation is to remain outside of that. Riverstone's memo from June 2025 and from their report following the protocol concludes that there's no negative impact on deer wintering habitat. Just wanted to note with respect to the 90 meters frontage, if you look at the frontage in the subdivision, there's an average of 100 meters and an average of 1.6 hectares, which is larger than that sort of that square box that is sometimes used by M&R as a guideline. And besides that, the lots are at the 0.8 hectares, which is 2 acres. So if you took 90 by 90, it's the 2 hectares. There's no specific requirement in the Armour OP or zoning bylaw referring to this particular plan of subdivision. The policies are generic and apply to all lands. In fact, it allows some flexibility the way it's presently set up, addressing the issue with respect to the previous OMB decision. Moreover, that decision applied to a previous draft plan that lapsed. The new draft plan is reviewed against the new policy regime. The third point, the timing of the meeting. I think this was answered quite well by the township staff. There are timelines imposed by the province to move application forward. On the strength of all the supporting studies that was required as part of the pre-consultation process, including the hydro-G, archaeological, ecological, lake capacity, and planning reports, enabled the application to be deemed complete. With respect to clear cutting, there was also recommendations put forth in the EIS. They talked about a 2-meter wide pathway within a 9-meter wide landscape area. It follows the policies within your official plan section under the site plan control. And of course, clearing outside of the development area is also to be minimized. So again, and there's also recommendations in that report dealing with stormwater management. So all those will be brought forward and dealt with under site plan control when this moves forward. Anyways, that completes what I have to say, and we respectfully request council to hopefully approve the application. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of the application? Either here in the room or on Zoom? Not seeing any. Don't see any hands up. Okay, is there anyone here opposed to the application who would like to speak at this time? I believe we have Don.
Yeah, and I might suggest for anybody on Zoom, if you do wish to speak, if you could just use the raise hand feature, and that will help me to prioritize. Don, I did see your hand go up, so I'm happy to put you up. And I do have your presentation here that I can screen share if you would like.
That would be great. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks. Yeah, I can, if you want to put it up, or I can share my screen, whatever's easiest.
I've got it here for you.
Okay, thank you.
We, Council H has a copy of it as well, Don.
All right. Can we, okay. Are we up on page 1?
We are up on the, I'm on item 1, significant wildlife habitat.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, well, starting from the cover slide, if you want to start there. What I wanted to point out here was, in the age of AI, you can't really take anything that you see as certain, but all of these photos are taken from Deer Lake. In fact, the one on our cover is you can see the subject lands are in the background. And the eagles are, in fact, nesting and breeding on Deer Lake, remarkably enough. If we can go to the next slide. And try to do the same here. What am I trying to do? So I think, addressing what Lanny said, and appreciate your comments and help, and we appreciate the opportunity to present today. Site plan control certainly is going to be a valuable tool, but I think what we lack in Armour is I don't believe that we have a tree preservation bylaw, and the EIS recommendations around vegetation removal are exactly that. They're recommendations, right? So I don't think that we have the teeth to be able to prevent someone from cutting more than the 2-meter discussed lot. And, I think when we look at averages, averages, I think a lot of our discussion or a lot of our concern is around unbroken shoreline, right? And averages just say that we're going to have, if we look at the ones that are tighter, that we're not going to have that much unbroken shoreline, where historically a wide variety of wildlife has taken advantage of that. So I think, but going to my slide, so just addressing some of those discussion points. I know the township did reach out to MNR, and they do not, by policy, opine on any specific developments. But what we did get back was a very specific indication from the regional planner that this was still stratum 1 and 2 deer yard, and from their perspective, significant wildlife habitat. These are, of course, uniform designations by MNR to convey specific wildlife habitats, keeping in mind that they have done aerial overfly data gathering for almost 50 years. So I know we certainly, Riverstone came out and made their assessment, but to judge that against the amount of data that's been collected by MNR over this period of time, it's kind of unreasonable, I would say. And, and then we look at the last sentence from Mr. Short. The ministry does not really change their designation based on third party. So, I mean, what that really means is I can say it's a Walmart parking lot and you can say it's a Burger King. Doesn't matter, right? From Ontario's perspective, it's a stratum 1 and 2 deer yard and significant wildlife habitat. And I think that's, and I think, I believe that Mr. Shaw correctly said, there is a lot of areas for the deer to winter. But I think what we see is that it is the opposite, right? The deer have been using this specific space. And while my picture's a little hard to see, and thankful to Michelle over at Linwood for providing it, this deer is in lot 3 up getting some more browse. So I think it is, we definitely see it's consistently used. And it's what will happen when it's not available? I mean, that's kind of difficult to say. Moving to the next slide, if we could. Was that not? So on the next slide, we talk about fish habitat, right? So in lot 1 is drawn in the site plan. Really, lot 1 is fully fronted by type 1 fish habitat per MNR. And per the official plan, no development can occur adjacent to that. So, I mean, this was also observed by Melissa Markham when we had a peer report done after the public meeting last year, almost at this time. And she also mentioned how is that going to be done? And then we certainly know, and I think it was mentioned by Mr. Shaw, that federal laws do apply. There's guidelines around putting anything abutting a type 1 fish habitat, and that authorization would be required to put docking and such. So I think if we look at that alone, lot 1 can't stay at the frontage that has been allotted and have any space on the waterfront. And I think Mr. Shaw said, they could slide a floating dock on the edge there. And I mean, we have to be realistic, right? It's not to be fronted, not adjacent to type 1 fish habitat. And then I don't see how that would be avoided. We don't see how that would be avoided in this particular case. Moving down to item 3, if we could. Item 3, opposition to amend. So, the timing was a challenge for us, as the last public meeting was, because so many of our residents are seasonal and their places like mine. I can't get in there. I couldn't stay there if I chose to, or not without significant hardship. But we, in addition to the letters of opposition that were discussed earlier, I think there were 25. We also opened up a Facebook group to try to get interest from folks both in the township and around the township. And as of today, we had already, in I think just 2 weeks, had acquired 92 folks who all oppose the amendment. And I think it was mentioned that we did have the Ontario Deer Stewardship Association provide their thoughts on this on the environment here and what would be best done. And of course, their opinion was similar, I think, to the membership of my group, that the minimum frontages need to be maintained. And I think, and again, that from a timing perspective, if it is understood that there was a very specific timeline to accept the application for a zoning board amendment, but that was 120 days, right? All totaled between when it's provided when the application is accepted and when the public meeting is completed and when the council determines. And we got, I believe, 24 days as opposed to a little more generous. So I guess all things being equal, we would prefer a little more generous timing that would allow more of us to be there in person. And I could safely say if we had another 4 weeks, we'd have a couple hundred people in that group, and we'd be at the Katrine Community Center right now because we'd be overflowing council chambers. We'll go on to the next slide if we could. And this one, kind of speaks for itself. This, we had the good fortune of Sarah Cook doing an article to represent really all sides of the dilemma. And in that, I think some of our members, particularly Janet Brown, was interviewed, as was the mayor. And I think you said very clearly, Mayor, that we were going to maintain this through official planning and zoning bylaws. So I think the questions really come down to really two. One question for the council, is for what good reason would we consider shortening the frontage on these lots, given the environmental constraints and considerations that have been provided here? And I think, we've certainly seen in the area, very sadly, some lakes that have suffered from algae blooms that have made them unswimmable. And we've seen property values go down in some places around Huntsville. That's obviously, what legacy is it we choose to leave for the next generation would be the question I would have for council. And then my question to you, Mayor, we have disagreed with you on some of the aspects of this development, but we've certainly always considered you an honorable man. My question to you is, will you honor your commitment to maintaining the official plan and zoning bylaws? And with that, I'll end. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak in opposition? I see one hand up.
Yes, that's myself, Mariette. I have a few things to say. Just wondering, number one, why this has really been pushed through over the winter months. Why our mayor would be backing this to quickly go through during the winter months when there's no one on the lake. It seems really concerning that that would be the choice for the time of year. Something else I did when I started doing a little bit of research on what was happening with this is I thought, let's take a look at other lakes in the Muskoka region. Lakes that might be similar to ours, and some development that has happened on those lakes and what has happened at those lakes. Maybe we can learn something from those associations before it affects Deer Lake, before a catastrophe could happen. So let's just take a look and learn. I spoke with the association from Leonard Lake, and that lake size is pretty similar to ours. They had some development, quite large cottages, and their lake cottages were more traditional. Smaller, similar to our lake. And what ended up happening was they had so much runoff from these extra developments. It caused sedimentation. Sedimentation increases the temperature of the lake. When the temperature of the lake increases, what happens? Higher phosphates. Shoreline erosion also was happening. And more septic beds created around the lake also causes higher phosphorus. In the end, they ended up with this algae bloom. Now, some of them are trying to sell. They can't. Their property is not worth it. And unfortunately, when I explained our story and shared the map of this subdivision, they were in shock at how large the subdivision is to the size of the lake. And they pretty much said, good luck. Good luck with it. So I not only spoke to Leonard Lake, I also spoke to the Association of Muldrew, because they also experienced development. And what they found also was a large increase in phosphates in the lake, which caused major algae bloom again. What is this teaching us? What is this telling us? That we need to be extremely careful. We're not talking 4 or 5 cottages here. We're talking 15. Large. When you look at the size of that development, subdivision, I should call it, because it's a subdivision with roadways. You look at the size of that compared to the size of the lake, you can't say it's not going to have any environmental effects. Impossible. And I know you're saying they have to build within that blocked area that is stipulated within your planning. But we all know what happens eventually. People build, they're excited. Oh, I can't see the view of the lake very well. There's a few trees in the way. Who's going to monitor when they cut down a couple trees? 2 years down the road after the house is built, who's going to monitor that stuff? Nobody, right? We all know that. It's going to happen. We need to be very careful if we're going to protect the lake. The wildlife, the birds, the fish. So I'm asking you to stick to the original plan that the Ministry of Natural Resources put out. Why not? They put it there for a reason. We're not saying no development, but let's be smart about this for the future.
Okay, thanks, Marianne.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak? Is there one more there, Dave?
Yeah, Paul Steele and Christine Sarian.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm good to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm basically going to duplicate what
Mariette
had just said. We moved there thinking this is our dream home and we're going to live there forever, and now it has all changed. We love watching the deer walk across the ice and perfectly manicure that lake. It's a sad story if that's going to change. And yeah, we were there for life, and now that might all change. And but at any rate, yeah, it's a sad story. What you people, or what is possibly going to happen, and it's very, very sad. And yeah, I love fishing. Our fish are going to get drained in that lake. So if you have 15 more lots, that means possibly 15 more boats, more sea-doos, and the fish are going to drop. It was a great pickerel lake, as I knew before I bought there. And anyways, yeah, it's going to be really hard on our lake, and more people, more boats. It was a beautiful setup, and I don't know what else to say. It's sad, very sad. Thank you for hearing me out, and hopefully, if we all bond together, we can sort this out. But anyways, thank you for hearing me out.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any other hands up there, Mr. Clerk?
Not seeing any. Oh, I have Janet Brown.
Thanks for the opportunity. I just want to support everything that has already been said. I won't say it again. But for me, at the end of the day, it is about the health of the lake and the environment around the lake and our health and the wildlife's health. And I actually feel emotional from the last speakers because for me, it's the sadness of whether the lake will be sustained for the next generation of young people that are coming up. These, for us on our property, I'm third generation. I don't consider it mine. I'm stewarding it for future generations, and hopefully I've been stewarding it well for others on the lake. And it's just really, I know we're just talking about one specific piece and the rest has been approved, but it's sad. So if there's any chance to put one guardrail up, it would be, it would help. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. Anyone else? I don't see any other hands there.
Not seeing any other hands up. I'll do a last call, and you can either raise your hand physically or raise your hand digitally with the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. Oh, it looks like Paul would like to speak again.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's have to unmute again, Paul.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm sorry to come back in. There's one thing I meant to say. I thought when I bought there, when my wife and I bought there, I was told that the lots had to be 400 feet or more. And I did the math with metric, and they're not 400 feet or more. So I don't know where that changed. I know I did talk to one man there, and he said, well, the guy across the lake got one for less than that. So I guess we're going to do the same. Just a thing. I thought 400 feet is 400 feet. I don't know where 92 meters all of a sudden comes into play. My math might be wrong, but at any rate, I was told that if there was any development, they would have to be 400 or whatever it may have been, which I thought is fine, not looking like some other lakes around us with little strips, and we don't want to look like that. I don't think. I'm positive we don't want to. Anyhow, I'm just glad to put that in there, and I don't know where that come out of play, but at any rate, thank you.
I was wondering if I could say something.
Yeah, I just gotta make sure there's no one else in opposition there, Jared. Then.
Yep, no worries.
Okay, and next question is, we would hear from the applicant normally, but I don't see anybody from the Prentices here. We've already heard from Lanny, so. Okay, so I want to give a chance for council to ask any clarification questions, especially of anything that was presented tonight before we break from this meeting and go into our regular meeting.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Jerry Brand, Councilor, Armour Township. I'm also very involved with the American Community Hatchery Program. I'm the president for walleye. And I know quite a little bit about fish habitat and a little bit in phosphorus and lakes and whatnot. I just wanted to speak to Marriott's comment in regards to the phosphorus. And one thing that everybody can do is go check your soaps for your weeping beds. You might want to use biodegradable soaps, and that'll help your lake out. I just wanted to make that comment out there, and that'll help everybody. Okay?
That's great. That's a great comment, and everybody should be using that. Is there a way to monitor it? No. It would be great if everyone did. We add another 15 cottages to the lake. They add their soaps in there. You know what's going to happen. We're not going to be able to swim in that lake, and we're not going to be able to fish in it. 100%.
Okay, I think I may have missed Stefan from Planscape. Stefan, did you have your hand up just before we?
Yes. Hi. Good evening. Sorry, I'm Charlene asked myself to join in just to make an introduction. I'm Stefan Sherbach. I'm the planner for the Township of Armour. And I've been carefully listening to everything that has been submitted to date. And I just wanted to reiterate a few things for council's consideration at the regular meeting. So again, and I'm going to repeat a couple of key things here, which I'm sure council is aware and the members of the public. The planning board has already approved this plan of subdivision. There's a number of conditions that the Township of Armour has already provided to the planning board to include as part of their decision. One of the conditions that Armour had provided to them is this site-specific amendment. And the reason for fulfilling this condition is, of course, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Mayor, the reason is to ensure that the intended residential use is permitted. You're also recognizing deficiencies and frontages for 5 of the 15 lots, not all. And more importantly, there's a series of professional ecological recommendations that were provided as part of an extensive EIS that was submitted. Ms. Wicks is in the audience today to speak to the ecological concerns. They're a very reputable company that has provided more protection measures in play that are implemented through the planning tools to ensure that the environment is being protected. So that's a key consideration here. These recommendations are not done blindly. They are in play to have specific setbacks for dwellings, specific setbacks for septic systems, protections for streams and other additional setbacks. There's also protections for fish habitat. I think there was a member of the public who said that docks could be included in type 1 fish habitat. That's not true. The zoning bylaw is prohibiting docks to be in type 1 fish habitat, again, to protect that area. So the bylaw has been specifically set up to identify these key sensitive features and provide the additional tools. Mr. Dennis, acting on behalf of the applicant, is also correct. There are a number of conditions, additional conditions that instill these protection measures through agreements with the municipality and the landowners. So if somebody were to purchase a lot, there's going to be an agreement registered on title to say, you can't have a dock in type 1 fish habitat. Your house needs to be set back a certain distance. You're subject to site plan control. And these are all tools under the Planning Act tool belt to help protect the environment. Another member of the public said, well, there's no tree preservation bylaw. Site plan control does protect vegetation. So if there is somebody that purchased a property and they mowed down the vegetation, the municipality can take them to court under that agreement. So there are these additional tools that the municipality is putting in play to implement those professional ecological recommendations. So again, those recommendations protect there's an assessment done for the deer wintering assessment. We've received correspondence from the authority having jurisdiction to say, we don't review third-party information, but to ensure that the provincial planning statement and all those planning policies are being met, the policy says unless there's professional recommendations that protect the environment, then the development can proceed. So that's exactly what's going on here. This report is in accordance with those protection policies, those planning policies, and the EIS and this decision to create the subdivision has already been assessed. It has already been determined that it follows the provincial planning policies. It has already been determined that it conforms to the Armour official plan. This is just implementing a condition of that previous approval. So as it relates to, again, to the reduced frontages, I think that's been addressed through Riverstone. There's a On page 5 of your agenda, there's a very good summary of how that has been specifically addressed professionally by a set of professional ecologists. And with respect to the timing of the meeting, your clerk is absolutely correct. Unfortunately, in an ideal world, the planning process doesn't stop because of seasonality. It can't. The alternative is the municipality waits, and then the applicant can appeal this. An appeal is very expensive to a municipality to fight. And who bears the costs of an appeal? That's the taxpayers. So as staff, we're working forward under the Planning Act. We have to. It's up to council to make their decision. Staff respect council's decisions. And, we're just following the implementations of the Planning Act, which are very clear in terms of dealing with these applications. And in addition, I mean, we're here digitally. This wasn't a thing 4 to 5 years ago. So I think having this digital component also provides another means of communication with council digitally when people who are not in the area can attend these meetings. It's a great addition to the municipal planning process. So in conclusion to council, it's our professional recommendation that council considers this application as part of their regular council agenda. From our professional planning perspective, this zoning bylaw is just simply fulfilling a condition. The zoning bylaw itself has been set up so that it's consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to your official plan, and it's the same tests that were reviewed when the subdivision was being considered. So again, nothing has changed. This is just moving forward based on the science, the supporting documentation, and everything else that was in front of the planning board to conditionally approve this. If council has any other questions, I'd be more than happy to respond. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Stefan. Questions for Stefan for this? We can hold them till our regular meeting.
Sure. This is Don again from the Deer Lake Property Owners Association. Stefan, I appreciate your time and thoughts. If I misspoke, the lot that is fronted by type 1 fish habitat has no room for frontage. There is no room for a dock. I did not say you could put a dock there. I said that alone necessitates expanding its frontage to at least the 90 meters that are required. The frontage remains in the bylaw as a minimum of 90 meters. The EIS, of course, is commissioned by the development folks who want to get the work done. It would be unlikely you're going to try to find a way to make sure that it's compliant. I understand that, right? That's how things are done. But right now, those frontages are deficient based on the bylaw. We are asking that those frontages be enforced. And again, going back to what you told us, Mayor, you promised you were committed to maintaining the bylaws and the planning, the official plan, which says very specifically, no less than 90 meters. That's all we're asking for. We know the number of lots is not in question. Whether or not they're going to build is not in question. The only question here is that we expect those 90-meter frontages to be enforced.
Can you speak to that, Stefan?
I think I think a lot of this stems from the ecological perspective, and perhaps it's important, and I'm sorry, Ms. Wicks, it might be good to put you on the hot seat. But from an ecological perspective, this assessment was clearly done and completed in accordance with the provincial standards. So the reduced frontages are based on the deer wintering habitat, which has been proven through the studies that it's not. I don't know the words here, and I apologize if I misspoke, but it's not as prevalent as other type 1, type 2 that is normal in other surrounding areas. So I know,
Stefan, so you're discounting what MNR has offered?
Don,
yes.
Can we just let Stefan finish? And I think
I was going to say the same thing again, Mayor. And the reality is MNR says it is. They have 50 years of data that says it is. I respect what Riverstone did, but we have to cede to the authority. MNR is authoritative in Ontario, and what is a deer yard? They have said very clearly on October 1st of 2025, this is stratum 1 and 2 deer yard and a significant wildlife habitat. They can't comment on the development, but they're very specific that this plot of land is in fact under those characteristics. And
So-
for
so-
that reason, we are asking you to maintain the 90 meters as dictated in the bylaw that has been there long before this development was presented.
Okay, are you finished, Don?
Yes, sir.
So Stefan, you had mentioned Bev would like to comment on, so we actually have Riverstone in the room. So I would like to hear from Riverstone as opposed to
Would you like me to
other sentiments. Go ahead.
move closer? So the Ministry of Natural Resources does map stratum 1, stratum 2 deer yards across the province. This is done through a combination of forestry mapping and air photo interpretation, as well as some flying over. These maps are rough. They're based on the conifer cover and the surrounding deciduous forest types. We regularly go out and follow a protocol that has been prescribed by the Ministry of Natural Resources and the various tools that are provided under the provincial policy statement guidelines and assess deer wintering habitat. So that was what was done for this property specifically. There is a small corner of stratum 1 deer wintering habitat, which is the core habitat where deer go when the snow gets deep and it gets really cold in the winter. And there's a small corner that was mapped on the southwest corner of this parcel. That was reviewed in the field by Craig Mann, who is a very seasoned ecologist and a forester. He's very experienced in doing this. And then the rest of the property is stratum 1 or stratum 2 deer wintering area, which is where the deer start to come in and move around and start to feed potentially if they're going to move into a stratum 1 deer yard. So I'll go back to the beginning. Stratum 1 deer yards are the female, the matriarch of a herd, will actually teach their young ones how to get to these areas. So they have a very high fidelity to these areas. So when you go out and find a well-used stratum 1 deer yard, it's very obvious. There's tons of pellet piles. There's lots of browse. You can see the nibble marks on the conifer trees, and then on the areas surrounding the key thermal cover, these areas you see all the little nibbled off branches. So Craig went and did this work in a season, I can't remember the year, I apologize because this was not necessarily my project, but he did the work in a year when there was at least 70 centimeters of snow in late April, when I think he did the site visit, and he did not find signs of deer tracks, deer pellets, extensive deer browse on the property, hedging, like serious hedging along the lake shore. The deer might use the area. Deer wander around very regularly, but they have different seasonal patterns. So they'll follow these daily feeding patterns, but it doesn't necessarily make it a critical thermal cover deer yard, nor a stratum 1 area or stratum 2 areas that is being used. So that was what was determined on this particular parcel. Craig said he found a couple of deer pellet piles. So when you have snow left, it's very, very clear where these areas are. There were limited trails through the subject property. So he had no concern about considering this, even though it's mapped as deer yard, it didn't actually meet the criteria for being used as a deer wintering area. The other thing that Craig noted was where there is heavy conifer cover, there was too much open canopy for it to be good protection from the wind, as well as significantly reducing the snow level underneath the trees, which is the critical part of the thermal cover that the deer would need in the winter. So that was the assessment that was completed. Based on that assessment, it was determined that a 90-meter lot or a 60-meter lot would be sufficient. These lots are still 2 hectares or 2 acres, if I got that right, Lanny, 2 acres in size. So even though they are not 90 by 90, they might be 60 by 120. So that the actual area of the lot and the retention of the vegetation in this area will be the same as if we had a 90 by 90 lot. So based on that, Al, who's not able to be here tonight, came to the conclusion in discussion with Craig, along with the policy manuals, that this was not used deer wintering areas, even though it had been mapped by the province as such. I don't know if that answers your question, but if there's any questions about that explanation, I'm happy to.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
expand.
Can I speak to this, Ron?
Question?
Yeah, my name's Jay Waller. I'm an owner at Linwood Resort and part of the Deer Lake Association. I'm not sure exactly what date it was that the 70 centimeters late in the season. I'm sitting watching from my living room at exactly the lot you're talking about. There's a cut line along the trees. On average, 30 to 40 deer coming out of that bush, down, feeding along, mostly the small ones, and then going right back into that area. I don't understand how it's changed. This year alone, the snow well in excess of 70 centimeters. So I don't know where he's been. I've done 15 years of watching that shoreline. Well, actually 17 years. I've been on that lake for 4 decades now. There's no way of calling that anything but a deer yard over there. Like, I have 50 to 60 walk through my property every day, and they just get more and more. When there's more snow, there's more deer because they're looking for places to eat, anything they can chew on. I've got to protect trees on my property that they don't eat them because I'm running a resort. I don't want to lose my trees and have to replace them and take trees down and whatnot. I've done everything, and I have since I bought this resort to follow the guidelines of being environmentally friendly to the animals, and I've had to learn about the animals and everything else. And I've watched more animals show up in the last 3 to 4 years that I haven't seen in decades. Everything from the bald eagles to, like, we don't see American eagles nesting around here, and here they are on our lake, taking deer, like picking up carcass. We've got foxes running normal now. We hear the coyotes, we hear the wolves. They're all coming around. The moose seem to even start making a presence again. But if we move in 15 houses into a subdivision across the lake from where I'm looking at this stuff going on, it's going to make a difference. It will make a difference. We've been in other places where that's happened, where you put in too much stuff on the shore or on the property, and the lake's going to hurt by it. There's no way around it. I've watched the fish change in that lake so many times over the years, but like what Paul says, we bought that resort. It was the place my wife and I met, started dating out of, and decided that that's the future right there, and we want to be part of that. And all I'm seeing is it slowly being diminished. And as far as the animals and the deer eating along that shoreline, the pictures are there. The second page you see that Ron and Don had, that's a picture of a deer on that spot that they say it's not there. No, that deer's eating the tree line. That's what that deer's doing. And I watched just the other day, 30 deer across the front of my place on that lake. That's a lot of deer. I'm sorry, the M&Rs had lots of time. The ministries had lots of time to see this stuff over the decades. You can't do it because somebody went there for a week or so and looked over there. I can come out in the spring and there's nothing around anywhere because it's all moved off in the bush. That's what they do. But come wintertime, and if you put people in there that are living there year round on that side, they're not coming around.
Right. Okay, thanks, Jake. Anyone else on Zoom with any other one last comment, Paul?
Yeah, I'm sorry to chime in again. Oh, you got me?
Mm-hmm.
You got me?
Yeah.
I just want to reinforce what Jay is saying, but I had already had it ready to go. But anyone that says it's not deer yard is crazy, and I can't reinforce enough. If you go there and you look at the tree lines, like, it's, what do you mean the deer aren't there? It's my God. When I explained to Chris, she thought, who trims all those cedars? And I said, it's the deer. And there's a big rock on the one side we call the bald face rock. Anyways, and the deer just do it perfectly. And sad story, but we didn't watch it. But there was a wolf had got a deer in the middle of the lake one day. There wasn't much snow, or one night, and we just watched nature take its place, because the deer got it, or I'm sorry, the wolf got the deer. He couldn't run, and so then there's a blood splatter there, as sad as it sounds, but it's nature. and then the birds came in, and the wolves pulled it from one side to the other one night to the next, and the coyotes came in and they pulled it around, and then the birds came in and then they cleaned it right up. It was a sad story, but that is nature, and that's what we come here to see, and we hope to keep for everyone, our kids, your grandkids, everyone.
Okay, we're down to the last few minutes here. And Wendy, sorry, I've forgotten that you're out on Zoom. Did you have any questions from a council perspective, or are you good for now? Okay.
You're on mute.
No, I have no questions. I've listened to all the presenters this evening and read all the information, so I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Okay. Thank you. Signs of the applicant? No. All right, public meeting regarding consideration of the proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 27-95 as amended in the Township of Armour District of Perry Sound is now adjourned. Council will consider all the matters placed before it prior to coming to a decision. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
4 minutes will be our regular meeting.